How's it going, YouTube? Mevin back with another bundle spotlight. Today we're going to be touring the Humble Indie Bundle number 8. I love the Humble Bundle. I think the Humble Bundle is a great set of games. They're usually pretty quality. I've bought a lot of them, and I'm sure a lot of you have too, but in case you're on the fence or just want to see some gameplay footage of some of these games before you decide to purchase, this is going to be a brief overview of all the games. There's currently a total of, I guess, if you pay above the average, 7 games, plus all the soundtracks, plus you get to donate to charity, plus you get Steam keys. So generally, it's a pretty good deal if you ask me. And so let's just jump right into it and talk about some of these awesome games that so far I've really enjoyed, and give you some of my first impressions. So here we go. So the first game we're going to discuss is Little Inferno. Now, at first glance, Little Inferno is both an incredibly creative game and a game that doesn't seem like it has a lot of long-term appeal. Basically, the way the game works is you go to a catalog and you buy some junk and some toys and stuff, and then you throw it into your special Little Inferno entertainment fireplace and you set it on fire. And that's it. That's the whole game, is burning stuff. Now, for you pyromaniacs, you might be going, wow, that's my deal, I love this game already. And for pretty much everyone else who's not that, you'll be wondering, what's the appeal to just setting things on fire indefinitely? See, that's kind of how I felt about the game at first. Like, I wasn't really sure what was going on, and pretty quickly, once you get into the game actually sort of makes it a lot more intense and narratively compelling. And I don't really want to spoil anything, and I don't want to give away anything of the plot, but play this game because it's so much more than about burning toys. And the actual portion of the game, like all of it, that's just setting stuff on fire, is actually really well done, and it's really fun, and it's quite entertaining. So, there's lots of catalogs that you can unlock that over the course of the game that have tons of crazy items. Like, you start with like some pretty easy stuff, like, you know, a stuffed bear or whatever, or like a toy thing, or like, you can see on screen there's like a television. That's not that crazy, but eventually, like, you'll get like a small moon or something like that, and when you throw it into the fireplace, it actually causes gravity to like, be, like, the moon is the center of gravity now, and all the stuff in the fireplace will like surround it and start orbiting it, and it looks really cool, and then you set it on fire and it like explodes. There's lots of explosions in this game, by the way, and they're all really adorable and cute, which is another great thing, is that I feel like this game has a lot of personality, in that all the little things you set on fire are just like adorable. Oh, it's so cute that I'm burning you, it's hilarious and fun. And you know, the game gets more and more intense as you play it, and you start to learn more and more about what's going on around you, and it becomes less about setting things on fire just for the purpose of setting them on fire, and more about discovery. There's combos that you click on the menu, and like basically it's just a pun or like a small hint in the title, and you kind of just have to figure it out on your own. Like, oh crap, that's these 2 items. I'll set those 2 on fire, and you just saw I just did the springtime combo. So this game definitely gets a recommendation from me. I think it's a very beautiful game. It's a touching game. It's well made, and I definitely recommend it to everyone. I think it's a great game, and it's very fun, and it's a great way to start the bundle.
Dear Esther, the morning after I was washed ashore, salt in my ears, sand in my mouth, and the waves always at my ankles, I felt as though everything had conspired to this one last shipwreck. I remembered nothing but water, stones in my belly and my shoes, threatening to drag me under to where only the most listless of creatures swim.
So this game is called Dear Esther, as you may have guessed from the first line of dialogue that I just showed you. And the reason why I showed you that is because I feel like the dialogue and the monologues that the narrator states and retells through the course of the game sort of indicates a lot of what kind of game Dear Esther is. Dear Esther is a first-person adventure game. It's plot-driven. It revolves around exploring a deserted island, while the narrator sort of retells his story through his letters that he's written to a woman, presumably by the name of Esther. Now I have some mixed feelings about this game, although most of them are positive, because I think that this game does a really good job, for the most part, in trying to accomplish its goal, which I think is to have a very atmospheric setting that is very haunting and suspenseful, but in a way that's dramatic, but not about being scary or being like really terrifying or anything. It's a beautiful game. It looks gorgeous. I maxed out the graphics, and it just, you know, on my particular setup, it looks really good. And the music is just top notch. It really sets the mood. I get chills every once in a while when like a really profound or compelling line of dialogue, or I guess it's really more of a monologue, is restated or retold to me. And then the music will kick in, and I just like, it feels great, and I get immersed. I get really into it. And you know, as much as the gameplay footage looks like you're just sort of wandering around aimlessly, it feels good. Like, it feels like, wow, I'm really doing something, and like, it's interesting and it's compelling. However, the game has sort of its downsides too. So oftentimes, for me especially, I got lost quite a bit because the game doesn't really tell you where you're supposed to go. And you know, for an adventure game that's all about uncovering the mystery of the island and the mystery of the narrator on your own, like, that sort of makes sense that they won't just like tell you with a big glowing arrow where you're supposed to go. But the problem is that it's so open world that oftentimes I would wander and I would have no idea how to progress the game any further. And I wanted to hear more dialogue. I wanted to get more involved in the story, and I sometimes had a hard time finding it out. But for the most part, the game was so beautiful and I guess atmospheric, and it really did a good job of setting that feeling and the mood, that it wasn't too bad when that happened, but it did sort of break the immersion level. So I mean, this is the kind of game that sort of is either, I feel like it's either a love-hate kind of game. You either really like these adventure games that are really slow paced and really all about the narrative, or you hate them because they're not entertaining and they're not very fun at all. So I feel like Dear Esther is one of those kinds of games, and I personally really enjoyed it, and for certain kinds of people or certain gamers, I would recommend it, but it's certainly not a game that's for everyone. Our next game is a game called Capsized, and sort of the premise of Capsized is you're a crew member in a spaceship that's flying around an alien planet, and it gets shot down, and you're trying to survive on this alien world. And the thing that I immediately noticed about this game was sort of the interesting graphical detail and the types of monsters, and you know, just how kind of cool and green the world looks. So the visuals are nice in this game, but that being said, this was probably for sure my least favorite game that came with the Humble Bundle. As you can see here on the screen, I'm getting torn up by these alien monsters. And I think the reason why I like this game the least was just because I personally found the controls to be somewhat unintuitive, or, well, maybe unintuitive isn't the best word, but hard to manage. So one thing that I struggled with was learning what buttons do the right thing. So like when you have, for example, eventually you get to use your jetpack and fly around in the world, and hitting space lets you use your jetpack, but I've been trained by so many games to use the spacebar just to jump, and the spacebar and the W key in the WASD keys do different things. W jumps and spacebar jetpacks. And there are other things like this, like the fact that you have a grapple hook, but it's mapped to the shift key, which I guess wouldn't be that bad, but it's hard to be mobile in this game, and a lot of surviving in combat is actually being mobile. And the fact that it was difficult for me to stay mobile and to be able to move around move around as smoothly as I wanted to, like I wasn't able to do that. So it made playing the game difficult. That being said, however, it's still a cool game. It's a 2D side-scroller game, and there's some really fun physics that are involved with grappling things and moving large pieces of the environment. You have a gravity gun that's really fun to use to like shoot enemies off of you when they're all swarming you. It's really easy to die, but maybe it's just because I'm bad at the game. And your guns generally aren't, like, the starting gun that you have isn't really that good. I sort of ran out of ammo on my other guns really quickly. So I could see this being sort of like a sort of difficult 2D survival-ish game. And I didn't really spend too much time with it because there were other games in the bundle that interested me more. But the first couple of missions that I played through were interesting. I just wish that the controlling of the character was a little bit more intuitive, so that way I didn't struggle so much with moving around the way that I wanted to, and could focus more on like killing the bad dudes that I didn't want to attack me anymore. So I guess I wouldn't say I don't recommend this game, but it could definitely use some. So it definitely takes a little bit of time to get used to, and to be able to move quickly and efficiently. And I have a feeling that once you're able to do that, this game gets a lot more fun, because it just, you know, once it becomes second nature to use the grapple hook correctly and to, you know, jetpack around in the way that you want to, fighting enemies and stuff, it becomes way more fun. As it was when I played it, it was a bit of a struggle, and it was kind of frustrating, and so it was hard to play. But overall, I'd still say that it has the potential to be a really fun game. Maybe I just don't have the patience for it. So this next game we're going to be looking at is called Thomas Was Alone. Now at first glance, Thomas Was Alone doesn't really seem like it's that innovative of a game. It's just another platformer, and this time instead of playing as a Meat Boy or a Mario, you play as a little rectangle, or eventually like a couple of rectangles or whatever. And that doesn't really seem that interesting at first, but this is actually one of the coolest games on this bundle, and I heard about it a long time ago, but never really played it or really looked at it much beyond the trailer, which like seemed interesting, but I was like kind of meh, whatever. The coolest thing about Thomas Was Alone is definitely the story. Now that might raise a few eyebrows or make you confused because you play as a rectangle, which doesn't really lend itself to a lot of narrative imagination, but it's actually really amazing and impressive at how attached you become to these little rectangles in the game because of the narrator. Now, one thing that I personally have always thought was kind of silly in narration in games and other media is that whenever you take just a British person and have them read something in English accent, it suddenly sounds so much more intellectual. But in this game, they do use an English accent, and I love it. And maybe that's just me buying into the trope and being hypocritical, or maybe like this game is uniquely awesome. But for whatever reason, it's great, and I do buy it, and I love the story, and I love learning about the personalities that get associated with these squares. I don't even call the rectangles like it's. I call them by name. So the one that I'm playing as right now is Thomas, that you're watching, and he's like got his own personality. And I sound like a crazy person because Thomas is a rectangle, but if you play this game, you will understand just how interesting and cool the narration is at drawing you in and getting you involved in these geometric shapes, which seems silly. Like, I really do enjoy this game. It's not, I don't think it's my favorite game on the bundle, but it's definitely close, and it certainly is one of the coolest platformers I've ever seen, and I really enjoy this game, and I highly recommend it. So the next game that we'll be looking at is Hotline Miami. And now we're getting into the games that are about paying above the average. You don't get them just by paying whatever you want. So if you don't plan on doing that, then you can skip these next couple of minutes. But if you do, definitely pay attention. And I do recommend that you buy these extra 2 games. So Hotline Miami is a top-down beat-em-up style game. You pick up items on the ground, and you try and kill everyone in sight and clear the levels as fast as possible. This game is violent. It's bloody, it's gory, and it's all about the killing. There's, in fact, I think there's like one other character in this game that like you ever really talk to, but the dialogue is meaningless. The whole game, it's premised on the idea that you brutally slaughter these people, and you know, honestly, I don't even know if I really know who the people are, like who it is I'm killing. It's just slaughter constantly, like just killing people all the time, using different ways of killing them. It's brutal. It's definitely not the kind of game that a sensible person who like would really love Dear Esther would also love. I'm not saying that you can't like both games. I'm just saying that they're 2 very different kinds of games in this bundle. And I love this game, and the only reason that I can't say it's my favorite game on the bundle is because I already owned it before the bundle came out. Like, this was the one game on the bundle that I already had. So I guess I'm speaking from a little bit of a bias in the sense that this is not like a first impression type video. I've almost beaten this game already, but it is a great game, and I definitely recommend you play, especially if you're into that sort of thing. If you're not really all about violent video games, and I don't know, whatever, I guess. But, the game is fun, the mechanics are really good, it's really fast-paced, so it has that, like, Meat Boy style of dying. So in Super Meat Boy, if you've never played it, when you die, you just sort of restart instantly, and there's no fuss, no muss, no, whatever. Like, it's really quick, and it makes it more addictive that way, and it makes you want to keep playing more, because dying really has no consequence for you. I guess, you're wasting time, I guess, if you die a bunch, but it's not gonna, like, make you lose a life counter, it's not gonna make you start over from somewhere. You just gotta do it until you can do it. And that's what makes Hotline Miami cool, is because you get to do, you have infinite restarts, I guess. So whenever you die, you just hit R and you start over, and so you get to keep trying and experimenting with different ways to clear the rooms and different item combinations, like, oh, I'm gonna use the baseball bat to kill this guy, pick up his gun, kill these dudes, and so on and so on. And that's what makes the game really entertaining and really fun. I definitely recommend it. Our next game that we'll look at is called Proteus. Proteus is another kind of weird, unique game that I'm not really quite sure how to describe or what to say about it. It's similar, I guess, to Dear Esther in the sense that it's a first-person, quote-unquote adventure game, if you will. The way it works is when you click on the island, it generates sort of a world for you, and the world has a lot of familiar characteristics, but it still has a set of randomness, if you will, when you first load the game. And this is sort of how every game of Proteus starts up. Can I even call it a game? I'm not quite sure, because there isn't a plot, really. There really isn't. There's no dialogue. The game has a lot of music that's sort of calibrated, if you will, to the events and the actions that are happening in the world around you. So, like, when the rain falls down, there's like a certain type of music that happens there. When you like walk past certain trees, like there's like a certain sound effect that happens that's musical in its nature. When you find certain things here and there, like they do different things to the environment, like you see different things. They're like little creatures around, but there's no story, I guess. And that's what, I don't want to say it makes it a bad game, but it makes me wonder if I can even really call it a game. It sort of was like a relaxing cool down for me. Like, you can hit the spacebar and your character actually sits down. So it's a game that has a sit down function. So try and think about that for a second and like what the game's purpose is all about. I feel like it's all about just like immersing yourself in the environment and listening to the music and, enjoying the moment, I guess, as it were. One funny thing that I will note is that my friend who also got this bundle told me that playing Proteus just kind of makes him want to go outside and do this, but in the real world. So, I don't know, you think about that, I guess. It's a cool game, if you really want to call it a game, but it's certainly not a traditional game, and it's definitely not for everyone, kind of along the lines of Dear Esther. So, take that into consideration when thinking about this game. So, I've saved Awesomenauts for last, and hopefully by the trailer that you just saw, you can kind of see why. Awesomenauts is a game that I am in love with and that I love playing, and not because it's the most conceptually unique game or because it's the most intellectual game in the bundle. It certainly isn't. But the reason why I love Awesomenauts is because Awesomenauts is a game with a lot of personality. So I'll talk a little bit about the gameplay. Awesomenauts is sort of like if you took League of Legends and made it a 2D side-scrolling beat-em-up type game, which is kind of cool. So you like have typical things like you have the Nexus with 2 turrets. There's like a top lane and a bottom lane, like visually on the screen. You are in teams of 3, and each champion has their own abilities. You can get special things in the shop. You can last hit minions, and you get money that you can spend on items. Like, there's a lot of parallels that you can draw between like a game like League of Legends or Dota and this game in some of the mechanics. Obviously, it's different because, the teams are smaller, the items are a little bit different, and it's a 2D game instead of a 3D one, as you can see on screen here. So, why do I love Awesomenauts so much? It's not because it's actually an incredibly strategic game. I haven't really gotten super into it, even though I've played like 5 games and won all of them. Like, I don't really have like a special build order. I just sort of mess around with champions. There's no like meta that I am aware of, although someone who is very into Awesomenauts can correct me if I'm totally wrong on this. I just am not aware of anything that competitive about this game. And to be honest, it's kind of refreshing because Awesomenauts is a game that doesn't take itself too seriously, but is still loads of fun to play because it has just so much inspiration in things that I love. So, if you watch watching the trailer, what it reminded me of was like a Saturday morning cartoon, and I think it's actually a self-described Saturday morning battle arena game, like a cartoon game that I would watch, like when I was a child, waking up early in the morning to watch shitty cartoons on the television. And by the way, I'd just like to point out that I would watch the shit out of an Awesomenauts TV show, but that's besides the point. Awesomenauts is a fun game. The characters are all really crazy and absurd. Like the video that you're watching right now, I am playing as Leon, the French chameleon. He's a cool guy. He's a cool character. I kind of like him. Probably not my favorite character, but they're just all so absurd, and they're based off all these crazy like character archetypes that just go way over the top. And the game has a lot of fun dialogue, and I love the amount of work that's put into making the real Saturday morning like cartoon feel. Every individual character has their own like theme song that plays, and like you just get really into it. I've been singing the Awesomenauts song that you hear on the trailer. I've been singing that for like an entire day and a half now. It's been stuck in my head because I think it's so cool. So Awesomenauts definitely gets my vote for my favorite game on the bundle, and it's definitely worth checking out. If you have like 2 friends that will buy the bundle with you and play this game with you, get this bundle for this game. It is so worth it. The game is so much fun, and I'm having a blast. My friends and I are having a lot of fun playing this game, and it is definitely the highlight of the bundle for me. So, to conclude my bundle spotlight, if you're just doing the TLDR, and I'll go through each game real briefly. Hotline Miami, definitely a great game. I love it. It's brutal, it's violent, and it's addictive, and it's a very well-designed action game. Proteus, interesting game, probably not for everyone. It's very relaxing, calm, very open-ended and hard to figure out what exactly it is you're doing, but it's a game that you can definitely get into if you're a fan of sort of first-person immersive environment-based games. Little Inferno, great game. It starts out kind of like, well, I'm not really sure. I guess I'm just setting stuff on fire, and it becomes so much more, and it's a very meaningful game actually in the end. And just burning stuff is actually really fun. Awesomenauts, my favorite game. Coolest game ever. Playing with your friends is so much fun. Alright, Capsized. It's interesting. I'm not very good at it, and I think that deters me from liking it more. But it's definitely worth checking out because it's got a pretty unique visual appearance and visual style, and I feel like once you get really good at the controls and the mobility aspect of the game, it will become really fun. Thomas Was Alone, great game, great story, very interesting intellectually because you get very attached to a bunch of squares and rectangles. Dear Esther, similar to Proteus, it's a first-person immersion game with a large story that goes behind it and drives all the action, which is a little bit different than Proteus. It's a little more directed than Proteus is. Hard for me to, because sometimes I get lost, but I feel like I'm gonna have enough patience that I'm gonna want to keep playing this game. I really like Dear Esther. It's a beautiful game. Last thing that I'd like to note before I close up here is that buying the bundle also gets you all the soundtracks to the music of the bundle. And I'd just like to say that every single game in this bundle has an amazing soundtrack. Definitely Awesomenauts, for the theme song is so great. Dear Esther is very haunting music, and Thomas Was Alone is also really good. Little Inferno has an adorable soundtrack. I don't think Hotline Miami is on there, which is a little bit disappointing, but I can understand since they got a bunch of like other artists outside and had them contribute to the game. So it's a little bit tough for them to have their soundtrack on there. But in any case, check out the bundle. Thanks for watching the video, and I hope you guys have a good time gaming.